the Dragon Steamboat talking at you. Hall of Fame 2009, and you are listening to the No Gimmicks podcast.
What's good, everybody? It's your boy Tom Smith here once again alongside my tag team partner Dale Clifford out there in Fernley, Nevada. And welcome to yet another episode of the No Gimmicks podcast, also available on the 3 and Out Radio Network. Shout out to my man Trace Nye. Dale, what's good, my man?
You know what? I do have to say, despite the goings-on with the name of this pay-per-view, The Great Balls of Fire, I do believe that the card itself fairly delivered. It gave us some good moments for what it was a secondary pay-per-view and one that was kind of just trashed for the name and the logo. In the end, I think it had some good moments, and obviously we can start off with the Universal Championship match. Brock Lesnar versus Samoa Joe. So, Todd, go ahead and let's get into the good, bad, ugly of this thing.
Yes, we can, and I agree with you. We're going to go here with Samoa Joe versus Brock Lesnar, Universal Championship. We got, for the good here, Joe was actually able to get in some offense and did not really look weak in this loss. Dale, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I thought that was kind of the takeaway as we the build-up for this one. We both agreed that we thought Joe was a good opponent for Lesnar in what we hoped wouldn't be a squash championship title match. And it really wasn't. It was like Joe did most of the offense. Lesnar got in a lot of what he does, basically the knee strikes, the German suplex, and then the F5, basically what Brock has been known for. But thanks to the early attack by Samoa Joe, he was able to get in some offense and prove to make this a worthy championship match where he kind of dominated for the most part and then was hit by an F5, and really you don't kick out of the F5.
By surprise, too. You know, they really played up the fact that Joe basically had him, like in a sleeper, and he kind of got caught sleeping, pun intended here, and then Brock caught him with that F5 and it was game, set, match. So moving on to the bad of this match, we kind of both agreed that Lesnar retains the title, yet he's a part-timer, and this is his first defense in several months. So, Dale, what's your take on that?
Yeah, now we're on to the build to SummerSlam here. We only really have one pay-per-view left, Battleground, for the SmackDown side in between the SummerSlam. And here we are, Brock Lesnar, as you said, first title defense since beating Goldberg at WrestleMania. And then what's the second one going to come at SummerSlam?
Yeah.
I'm talking about that's not a short gap between WrestleMania and SummerSlam for your main champion on a show to defend the title twice.
Yeah.
So I do believe something is going to happen at SummerSlam. I don't know who Brock's opponent is going to be at this point, but I want to say whoever it is going to beat him because they need a everyday roster member to carry the strap going through the winter into Royal Rumble and WrestleMania next year.
Yeah, I guess that whole, the champion must defend the title within 30 days rule. That must have got thrown out of the window a long time ago.
We just ignore that for the titles that they'd want to make sure stay on the part-timers.
Yep, I guess that's how that works, right? So moving on here to the ugly part of this match. So you had actually referenced that Lesnar looked like a Oompa Loompa. But yeah, Lesnar's color, he literally turned the color purple when he was being choked out by Joe in the Coquina Clutch. Dale, what do you have to add to that?
Yeah, it's so crazy seeing Lesnar in that because his face turns the color, and then you just see his blonde eyebrows stick out like a sore thumb on his face.
Yeah. It's funny to me because I was trying to think who he reminded me of. He almost kind of reminded me of like one of the characters from Mike Tyson's Punch-Out. I can't remember which one it was, but yeah, he kind of had that similar color and whatnot, and the same color hair and whatnot. When it comes back to me, I'll mention it. But moving on here to actually, we're going to make a quick note here. We had Kurt Hawkins against Heath Slater, but this basically was a filler match because we had an angle taking place backstage between Roman Reigns and Braun Strowman. So we did not really get a chance to see hardly any of this match in order to really give it any sort of a rating.
We didn't even see a finish.
Yeah, we didn't see the finish. And the one thing that we question is why were we given this? And I guess, it would kind of, been overshadowed if we would have gotten, Elias Sampson versus Finn Balor possibly. I mean, you have any thoughts on that real quick?
Well, that was the things like everybody when both Heath and Kurt came out, everybody's like, we want Finn. But that's the things like all of the attention was drawn to backstage in the ambulance with Braun Strowman of the match that we'll break down in a second. So that's the thing. They just wanted two people that were irrelevant to sit in the ring to kind of have something going on for the people in attendance while all the stuff backstage was going on.
Yep.
Because guess what? The stuff backstage really wasn't happening at that particular moment.
It was taped. Yes, it was. So moving on to that said match, we have Braun Strowman taking on Roman Reigns in an ambulance match. So for the good, basically, we're kind of, talking about this prior to the show and whatnot. Strowman gets the win here, and we believe we're getting what seems to be the seeds being planted for a double turn for both him and Roman Reigns. Dale, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, it's there, but then again, is it? Obviously, there's some correlations and some things that you can compare back to the Attitude Era that make you think that, no, there isn't really anything changing, and we aren't getting the heel turn of Roman Reigns that we all think. Although it's like, if it is a double turn, I'm really kind of disappointed that they're flipping Braun Strowman, even though he does get cheered. I think a lot of that just has to do with the fact that he's facing Roman Reigns right now.
Mm-hmm.
I like Braun as this dominating heel, because if he's a face going up against the heel guys, I don't know how well that's gonna really work there. And then to Roman, obviously back in the Attitude Era, different eras now, was like everything was a little bit more was bigger back then, but we did have Stone Cold dropping a beam on a bus that contained the members of D-Generation X.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
It's like that the face going to the heels. Like, so very similar thing, but the way you look at this one now is this is a completely different era. You don't have the big spots like that so much now. You kind of like it when you see them because everybody remembers the Attitude Era, and that was basically what you had there. So it is kind of interesting. Again, it could have been a double turn, but really it's a thing of Roman's getting booed regardless of where he is, and do we really want Strowman as a face?
Yeah. When we were having our text conversation prior to the show with our boy Craig Perkins, who unfortunately couldn't join us for this episode here, my side of the argument was, since when have we ever seen the announcers sympathize for Braun Strowman like they did tonight? And also, they basically were kind of making Roman Reigns out to be an a-hole, because I had said I was waiting for Braun to just bust through the side of that ambulance at any given time, just push everyone out the way and go looking for Reigns. But instead, we got him basically being, almost kind of helped out of the ambulance. He comes out, everybody's concerned about him, and he just kind of stumbles away, falling down a couple of times, looking almost more human-like, which makes him, more like in line with being a face. So, yeah, we'll just have to kind of wait and see how this all plays out. So getting to the bad here, because we had a very difficult time finding a bad in this match. If indeed this does wind up being a double turn, we, kind of said they chose Great Balls of Fire for this to happen. What's your thoughts on that, Dale?
Yeah, but that's also kind of one of the things here, small comparison I'll just try to make. AJ Styles beating Kevin Owens at a house show for the United States Championship.
Good point.
House show. Here's a small in the line of pay-per-views for a big moment in the overall spectrum of the WWE, makes people then realize, oh, I should probably tune in to all of the pay-per-views, otherwise I'm going to miss these.
Good point. Yes, very good point indeed. So the ugly of this match definitely was the aftermath, basically, of Reigns playing Demolition Derby with the ambulance and the trailer. So, what did you think about this, Dale? Do you think it was well executed and whatnot? As you already pointed out, we know obviously that this was all done well ahead of time. Everything was shot in advance. But how do you feel about the segment? You think it was effective?
Oh, I think it was a good one. But that's just the thing. It's like it's also one of those two things. Like, if you think back, it's like to the moment where Reigns is sitting in the driver's seat eating, he's looking in the rear view mirror, and then he decides to back it up. That kind of makes you where you get the sense of maybe there's a switch in him too.
Yeah.
Going towards the heel character, because obviously when Stone Cold dropped the beam back in the Attitude Era on the bus. There was no switch. Everybody knew it was coming.
Yep.
This one was like you thought Roman was just going to drive the ambulance off, and then all of a sudden he looks himself in the mirror and then throws it in reverse.
Yep.
So there obviously goes to that point. It's like I thought it was a very good spot. It's kind of I don't know, a little bit, because yes, there was a good chunk of the ambulance that crushed, but there was still a very large part of the back of the ambulance that was unharmed.
Yeah. He had to think about it, Dale. You know what that means? When you have to think about something before you commit a heinous crime, that means it's what? Premeditated. Yeah. I've been paying attention to Law and Order, man. So moving on here, we have The Miz, the Intercontinental Champion from the Raw brand, taking on Dean Ambrose. So the good for this one is The Miz retained, which I'm quite sure you'll have no problem with that, right, Dale?
Yep. No, I like The Miz as the champion, but it kind of leads into the bad part of this one is how he always seems to win, really.
Which leads to the bad, the shenanigans. Basically, the shenanigans coming from the Miz, Taraj, and Maurice. So how long do you think they're going to continue to, basically have them interfere in the matches and whatnot? And when is he going to actually, start getting some wins on his own? You have any further thoughts on that?
Yeah, I know that's the thing is because I had sent out the tweet. It's like I like Miz with the championship, but he always seems to be out of most of the heels that retain in championship matches seems to always need help. I'll say it's like at least it's nice that they're finding a way to get Bo Dallas and Curtis Axel on television. I don't know how long they're going to stay as the Miz Taraj. So that's going forward. Obviously, now with Maurice and the Miz Taraj, you're like, how can someone take the IC strap from the Miz? You're going to probably have to throw some stipulation in there, like a steel cage or something.
Yeah, exactly.
To try to flip it. Maybe we'll see that at SummerSlam. I don't know if it'll be against Dean Ambrose, probably, because he didn't fairly lose the champion or lose the match here. So
it's just kind of crazy to think, though, what we have here with the guys who are in the Miz Taraj. We have the son of Mr. Perfect, and we have the son of IRS, and neither one of those guys could get over if their lives depended upon it. I mean, we had them as a social outcast. Now they're basically the flunkies for the Miz. And speaking of Bo Dallas, what in the hell was Bo Dallas wearing tonight? I saw like a red bandana. I saw a sleeveless, what looked like a camouflage vest, and would look almost like it appeared that he stole Chris Jericho's pants from him. Hell, what do we have going on here, man?
I don't know. It's like, so I'm going to kind of steal a line that our good friend Brian Zane tweeted out. Bo Dallas looked like a half-man gang.
I like it.
So,
I like it.
Props to Brian on that one. I liked that tweet. And I thought it was a good comparison. I was like, I saw Bo Dallas and I just thought of a poor man's Sons of Anarchy.
Yeah, because if he was going to go the one-man gang, he would have had to come out wielding the chain, just like how one-man gang used to back in the day. Yeah, and everybody steered clear from that dude. If you saw Bo Dallas, you probably just start laughing, just like how I just did there. So moving on here to the women's, the Raw Women's title match, we had Alexa Bliss taking on a one Miss Sasha Banks. The good in this one was basically we felt that this was a breakout performance for Alexa Bliss and possibly the best that we've seen from her. Not only while she's been on the main roster, but possibly in the WWE as a whole. Your thoughts on that, Dale?
Yeah, I was like, I think a lot of that has to go with Sasha.
Yes.
Which some people might come back to is like, well, Alexa did lure Bailey, and I'll be like, as much as we like Bailey's, like I do think there are times where Sasha is better in the ring than Bailey.
Agreed.
So I think a lot of that, as we've said on Knox to Roman Reigns, that we've both had, a lot of his standout matches have come against outstanding opponents, and you're like, how much of that was the guy he was working as opposed to Roman Reigns? I don't really want to. I think Reigns is starting to get it over. And I was like, I think he can go in the ring now. I just think it's so past the point for cheering on him. But anyway, back to this one. I do think Alexa, this definitely was a move in the right direction, at least in terms of ring work. I'm not so much sold on the finish, but definitely her ring work now matches her look too. So
I like it. Yes. So moving on here. Now that you mentioned that, to the bad. Didn't like the count out finish at all. So we're just thinking, what's up? What's next here? We gonna get a rematch out of these two, or are we gonna wind up getting Alexa versus Nia next? What's your thoughts on that, Dale?
I don't know. I know Craig was pointing out like the count out finish works for booking purposes, but I just go into I hate count out finishes. I don't like them, never have,
especially pay-per-views.
I just think it's such a weak way to finish the match. Obviously, it sets up a rematch when you get it, but I also think it's just kind of a cheap way to do it.
Agreed.
But that's the thing. Now you're looking at this one. Nia's building the momentum. We're not very far away from SummerSlam, and you're like, are they overlooking Nia again here for her championship match, or is Sasha just not going to get another chance here, or are they going to make it a triple threat? I don't really want to see a triple threat. It was like we've been down the road of triple threats, fatal four ways for the women's title. I think Nia deserves a one-on-one chance for the championship, especially with Alexa, where the relationship that those two have.
Yeah, and I think, it could almost be a matter of them just putting it off because they know once we finally do get that singles match between Nia and Alexa, we know what's going to happen. Nia basically has to win that, So I think that's the only way that would really make any sense there. So moving on to the ugliest match. Now, I kept on pointing out that that crazy, dislocated elbow thing where her arm was hanging off all weird. But you and Craig pointed out to me that this is nothing new and that you guys have seen that before. I said I probably wasn't paying attention because I was looking at a different part of Alexa Bliss when she's been in the ring. But moving on, I digress here. So we actually gave the ugly in this one to Sasha Banks, who we felt took a pretty brutal back bump on the apron while heading out the ring. Dale, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I thought that one was a pretty good. Sasha does seem to take a lot of bad bumps to the back. She took another one. It was like where Alexa kind of bent her over too, bent her backwards. So that one kind of was a tough one there too. I just couldn't get past one of the spots in the thing where Alexa did the double knees, and then she did the moon. It's like the backflip into the double knees, and Michael Cole goes, Sasha Banks selling the move. I was like, that's what she's supposed to do.
Yeah.
Why would you even say that, Michael Cole?
Yeah, no, you know what, Dale, right? No blank. Yeah. So, anyways, moving on here to the next match on the card from Great Balls of Fire, we have for the Raw Tag Team titles the Hardy Boys, who are taking on Sheamus and Cesaro. So, the good for this one is we thought it was a very solid match for the first of its kind that we know of, because I do not ever recall seeing an Iron Man tag team match. Have you ever seen this type of match before in terms of stipulation?
In terms of television matches that I remember, no. It was like,
no.
I always remember Iron Man or Iron Woman matches being the one-on-one variety. So tag team, it was very interesting, kind of how they put it together, and it was kind of looking there early like it was just going to be a clean sweep for Cesaro and Sheamus, and getting us all to lead on to, is this the moment where the Hardys finally break up? Obviously, Hardys made the comeback, and then you have the 30-second finish there where Cesaro picks up a pin and then runs around the ring for a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, they did a really good job. I mean, of just kind of playing defense throughout this match and just kind of keeping, the Hardys at bay once they got that first pin, very early on here. So the bad of this match was what we felt is a very predictable outcome, that Sheamus and Cesaro would win the match, because from what we're hearing, there's actually been some progress and that we might possibly get to see the broken Gimmicks somewhere in the near future. And if that does happen, that there's a good chance that they might actually choose to split the Hardy Boys up. What's your thoughts on that, Dale?
Yeah, that's kind of the thing. The Hardys, they came back as a tag team, obviously, because they had to reunite. And now it just seems like they're in limbo.
Yes.
And Matt keeps teasing the broken elements. We hear him kind of throwing them out there. It's like, so that WWE wants it. He obviously wants it. And I believe if they get it, it's just going to be broken Matt Hardy and then Jeff Hardy. It's like, there's not going to be no Brother Nero in this one.
Right.
And obviously Cesaro and Sheamus are the bar. So they are a cohesive tag team right now. It's like with a direction. The Hardys don't really kind of have one. It's like they came back. They're the Hardys living off of what they did when they were back in the day. So that's just kind of the thing. And you kind of felt like it was going to be Cesaro and Sheamus because they are the team that really has the direction right now.
Go figure. Who would have ever thought that the WWE basically would be trying to work, an agreement out with like a company like Impact in order to get the idea to get these guys back on the right track here, right? So moving on to the ugly of this match, let's talk about Matt Hardy's eye, which got busted open somewhere during the match, and he was showing a pretty decent amount of color there. Dale, do you have any ideas of when exactly that occurred in the match?
I do not. Obviously it was right towards the end. I'm trying to remember because it had to have happened right before Jeff hit the twist of fate into the swanton. Because Matt was over along the ropes and he was holding his head. It's like, and you knew at that point it had happened, but I missed what move caused it because then all of a sudden the match ends and you see half of Matt Hardy's face covered in blood. And then obviously when they came in to start wiping his face away, you saw the nasty gash on his eye. So
yeah, because all three of us were checking that out, and it kind of caught all of us by surprise. So we're not exactly sure when it happened. If anybody saw exactly when that happened in the match, leave in the comment section on our YouTube channel for this episode. So moving on here, we had a feud between two former tag team partners. We had Enzo taking on Big Cass in a one-on-one match here. So the good for this one was Cass looked dominant. He truly did in his main roster solo debut. You agree with that, Dale?
Yeah, and I think he had to because this was all about Cass wanting to split from Enzo because Enzo was dead weight. If Enzo resembled anything sort of competitive, then Cass comes off not looking as strong as his words saying that Enzo was the reason why they couldn't get over.
Right. Okay. And so we kind of had a difficult time picking out a bad in this one, but we kind of both agreed Kaz's new theme music is kind of generic, doesn't really quite fit him, and I know how it usually works when guys debut. Sometimes they give you something generic and then eventually they're kind of working on a newer theme for you, something that fits the character a little bit more. So I don't know. Like, since we both agreed that this wasn't exactly the best choice, I'm just trying to think what would be a good theme for Cass. Now he's kind of split away from Enzo. Any ideas of where to go with that?
Oh man, I'm the worst in trying to figure out themes. It just kind of seems so different because obviously you have the one that they had as Enzo and Cass, and then you went to that one, and I think it was just such a wide spectrum of difference, and you get it because the other one is loud and big like Enzo.
Yeah,
and the other and it's like and this one is supposed to be big, but it's like quiet.
Well, one theme in particular comes to mind for me. If you remember one Mr. Billy Gunn, who used to go by the name of Mr. Ass, his theme song opened up with the line, "Well, I'm a casshole."
There you go. There we go.
Go on from that. That's my suggestion. I don't know where else to go from there, but yeah, that just kind of popped up in my mind when I was thinking of this. So the ugly of this match definitely was Enzo getting gorilla pressed to the floor by Big Cass, and that's quite a ways down, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Enzo is Cass is pretty close to 7 feet tall, and and that's just a straight drop to the floor, and we kind of know how fragile Enzo can be at times.
Yeah.
Yes. He even mentioned in some of the promos leading up to this match, and obviously Enzo carried the feud into this match with the mic skills, hands down. But that's what we know Enzo is. And then when it came down to the match, it was a squash because when it comes down to the wrestling, it is what it is. It's like Enzo has never really looked strong in ring compared to Cass.
He is not.
That's where we are now.
And I've made this comparison several times before. Like I said, it's almost just staggering to me how much Cass reminds me of Test. Andrew Martin, who we lost several years ago and from the WWE, or I guess it was almost a WWF, maybe possibly at that time. But yeah, I digress here. So moving on to the first match from the Great Balls of Fire card here, we had the opening match being Seth Rollins taking on the Eater of Worlds, Bray Wyatt. So the good of this one here, Bray Wyatt gets a rare pay-per-view win. Dale, I know this one had to make you happy.
Well, it's kind of it's a good thing. It's like Bray gets a pay-per-view win over a credible opponent. Seth Rollins has to be considered credible. He beat Triple H at WrestleMania. But as it's good for Bray, I also thought it was kind of bad for Seth too, because you're like, where's Seth's momentum now coming off of having defeated Triple H at WrestleMania and then having defeated Samoa Joe? Now he's taken a loss to Bray Wyatt, who obviously everybody knows is considered one of the top WWE Championship jobbers of all time.
I couldn't put any better myself, seriously. So when we get to the bad, I guess, this really almost could be a double standard here. It could be a bad for Bray, I guess, and almost like a good for Seth, because Bray did not really go over cleanly here. He kind of did the thumb to the eye, so it kind of makes his win, lesser effective. But then for Seth, I guess it makes it look better on the fact that he lost, and it wasn't a legal tactic used. So I'm not sure what's your thoughts on that exactly.
No. Yep, that makes sense. I can see that, because obviously when just like Dean loses to the Miz, he doesn't quite take as much heat because of the shenanigans that were needed by the Miz cronies and Maurice. And then same thing is like Bray cheated to win here. It's like, so Seth kind of comes off with a clean slate a little bit, and you figure they'll probably have a rematch. I don't know if it'll be on a Raw or at SummerSlam. We'll see.
Yes. For the ugly for this one, it definitely had to have been that DDT that Seth took onto the ring apron, where he just got spiked on his head by Bray Wyatt. Dale, you have anything you'd like to add to that?
No, I thought maybe the other spot was where Bray threw Seth into the stairs.
Yes, at the beginning of the match, right? It was right to his face, I believe. It almost looked like the corner.
But that one didn't look as ugly, because you could kind of see how Seth really protected himself. He protected himself well in the apron, but it's just that apron spot in a DDT. We've discussed it before. I was like, anything on the side of the ring is very tough, because there's no really movement. You're dealing with all of the structure of the ring there. So
exactly, yeah. There's no give at all. So now we've made our way to the end of the Great Balls of Fire card. Dale, is that your favorite time of the show here? So on the no gimmick scale from 1 to 5, what do you rate the Great Balls of Fire pay-per-view?
Well, April was asking me kind of what the grading was going to be, and I was like, I couldn't go below a 3. I still won't go below a 3. I think this is one of the better efforts out of Raw. I'll probably put it at a 3.25.
Okay, fair enough, because I'm about right there with you. We made fun of this pay-per-view's name for I don't know how long. I mean, it literally seems like months ago. And I personally held a grudge against this pay-per-view, because remember what I told you. This was originally supposed to have been Bad Blood. And it was supposed to have taken place right down the road in Hartford. So I was going to actually go to this show and do no gimmicks on the road. But then they decided to go ahead and move it to Dallas, Texas, and rename it to Great Balls of Fire. And I was just like, what the hell? So now that I've let that part go, I got to give a pretty solid rating to the show, because really, yeah, there wasn't really much to not like about this show. And I think it is the best Raw brand pay-per-view possibly that we've seen during the brand split, because I really didn't know what to expect from this one. I knew that the main event would be solid. I expected some good things from the tag match, the Iron Man match, and then everything else was pretty much, decent. I still have to go back and watch the kickoff match between Tozawa and Neville. So I have to check that one out later on. But yeah, I'm going to say for this one, I'm going to give it a 3.5. 3.5 out of 5 on the no gimmick scale. So one thing is for sure, we can sit up here and talk about Great Balls of Fire all night long, but unfortunately, we have come to the end of this episode. So thank you for joining us for our good, the bad, and the ugly of Great Balls of Fire from the Raw brand from 2017. You have been watching us on the 3 and Out Radio Network, and also remember, we are no gimmicks, no image, all wrestling, all the time. Please subscribe to our official YouTube channel at www.youtube.com/the No Gimmicks Podcast. Make sure that you subscribe publicly, so that way we are aware of your support. Check out Craig Perkins' article Around the Ring and Back Again on ProWrestling.com. We would also like to hear from our viewers, so please leave us some feedback in our comment section. Also, like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter at the No Gimmicks PC. Remember, sharing is caring.
Feel free to share the links to our episodes with other professional wrestling fans and on your social media accounts as well. That does it for this episode of the No Gimmicks Podcast. For my tag team partner Dale Clifford in Fernley, Nevada, this is Todd Smith in Bristol, Connecticut signing off. Until next time around, y'all take care.